Hi, I'm Nicole Roberts-Jones, and welcome to The Fierce Files. Now, what I know for sure is that one of life's greatest gifts will meet you when you go after your more. And so here is why I share with you thought-provoking insight and behind-the-curtain conversations with women who have reached the pinnacle of success because they went after their more. Now, I really want you to get this. One idea from these episodes can make a remarkable difference, not just in your career, but in your life. And I want to make sure you join the conversation in our Facebook group. So go to findyourfiercemovement.com. Now grab your pen and get ready for today's session of The Fierce Files. Hello and welcome to this episode of The Fierce Files. Now, for years, I held an online virtual summit called the Slay Summit, which was the catalyst to The Fierce Files. So every now and then, I will share with you our most popular interviews from that summit. So listen in as I share with you one of our most requested. Super excited to have this woman with us today, and her name is Taniya Nayak. Now, Tania is the owner of her own design firm called Taniya Nayak Designs, and you may have seen her as she has been regularly featured as a host and interior designer on HGTV as well as Food Network's Restaurant Impossible, and during the holidays, you saw her on ABC's The Great Christmas Light Fight, right? Now, she's a native of India, and she lives in my home city. She is a Boston native, right? So she's a Boston-based designer, and she's known for creating hot new restaurants and high-end residential projects, not just here in Boston, but all over. Well, her bio says United States, but I'm going to claim the world. So, ladies, please help me welcome Tania.
Hi,
Hey, Tania.
That was a lovely intro. Thank you.
I'm super excited to have you here. So Tania and I, a couple years ago, was it a year ago? Everything seems like it's so much further away. I had the privilege of being on a panel with Tania, and we just hit it off. And it's been super exciting to be around you and watch you grow. And so thank you again for saying yes to be here with us on the Slay Summit.
Oh, well, the privilege is mine. I'll tell you, I was so empowered when you were speaking, when we were together on that panel. You commanded that room, and for those people listening right now, they should know there were, I think there were 3,000 people in that audience, and you had every single person's attention.
I appreciate you, girl. You about to make me cry, and we haven't even started yet. So look, let me move off of me, because I don't, look, if I start crying, I can't read my notes, right? So tell us, now that you've been in this journey, right, how did you really make the shift from, starting your design firm and having that desire to really moving into being on hosting TV shows and being guests on TV shows and sharing your design genius? Tell us that shift and how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's really interesting because I think I did things a little backwards than most people have done. So just a little thin layer of background so kind of the rest of this all makes sense. Is I had gone to school for business marketing. That was my undergrad degree. And I think I did it because it felt safe in a weird way. And not to say there's anything wrong with it, because I use my marketing degree every single day of my life, and I'm so glad I did it. But I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I felt like I had this creative streak that I needed to figure out, because I was going to work every day. I was showing up, and I wasn't living. I was just showing up, and I didn't want to live the rest of my life just showing up. I wanted it to.
So wait, so Tania, I have to stop you, because what you're saying already right out the gate is yummy, and there's so many women that are right in that same space, right? And the thing that I think is so interesting, all the women that have said yes to the Slay Summit, all of us, including me, had this great career, but you had this rumble in you for more. So thank you for starting with that. I just want the women that are with you, if that's you and you haven't outed yourself this week yet, it's time for you to do it. It's time for you to say, oh, my God, you're talking to me, or you're stepping on my toes, or I'm in that place, whatever that is, and put it in our Facebook group. So sorry, Tania, I just had to, because I just thought that was so good.
I'm glad you did. Yeah. Well, you know what? It was actually, I remember very clearly saying this in my head. I said to myself, I am too young to be doing a job that I hate for the rest of my life. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You're always too young. It doesn't matter if you don't think you're young. You're still too young to be working another day, another week, another month, or years, or whatever it is, in a job that doesn't fulfill you and make you feel good. Because, look, at the end of the day, how many hours we spend working, let it be something you love so it doesn't feel like work. Like, let it be something that you're going to shine in and feel confident and great doing. And I know that's easier said than done. You know, it's very difficult for a lot of people to find that. And it's scary because we have lives, we have bills, we have families that need to be taken care of. So it's not as easy to take that leap. So I could just start by giving that little layer of background. So what I ended up doing was I woke up the next day and I walked myself right over to the Boston Architectural College. And I applied to do a master's in interior architecture because it was an itch that I needed to scratch. My father's an architect. I've always been creative. I just needed to try it, you know. So I went in and I applied to do that program. And sure enough, Nicole, this is where my whole life flipped upside down in the best way possible. I was going through, it was a few years, and all of a sudden, this master's program was, at the time, it was a 4+ year program for a master's degree, which is ridiculous, but you know, but they incorporated work study into it, so you had to work as part of your degree, which extended it a bit. But by the time I got to the very end, all of a sudden we got this email blast to everyone in the school saying, you know, there's a casting call for a show on ABC Family called Knock First, where you'll be designing spaces, whatever. And, you know, it went to my whole school, but it went to all over the country. It wasn't just right here in Boston. So there were thousands of people that were auditioning for this job. And we were told, go because it'll be a great learning experience. So this is one thing that I really would love to share with people is that sometimes it's the anxiousness about trying to be successful that holds us back. It's that I have to do this.
That's right? So good. That's so you guys need to write that down. Sometimes it's the anxiousness, it's the fear, it's the overwhelming thought of being successful that holds you back. That's so good.
Yeah, well, you know, so I went in there with zero expectations, to be honest. I thought, oh, what the heck, this could be really fun. But just the experience of auditioning, I didn't even look at it beyond that. I just wanted to be in that moment of just having fun and taking away what I could from that experience. So I went in and I auditioned, and I had a blast. I had a great time, and it clearly, obviously came through because I ended up getting that job, which was my first television show on a major national network.
Wow.
And I didn't know what the heck I was doing, by the way. I was like, I'd never done television before. Sure, I didn't even have a real design job yet because I'm still in school. So all of it was new and scary, but I dove in.
I love it. I love that you were really.
I hate to say this, but fake it till you make it, right?
Right. And so many of us, you know, it's so interesting. I was having a conversation with a girlfriend the other day, and she was saying how men will say, yes, they have the skill, they take the job, and they don't even know it yet, and they'll figure out when they get the job. Whereas we as women, what tells us that we got to know what we're doing already? Now, if you have intellectual property, which you did, around that thing, but you've never done it like this, you are smart enough to figure it out when you get there. You just may not know how to do it yet until you're in the middle of doing it, right?
Well, I love to take on challenges like that. You know, the first time I ever did some public speaking, I was quivering, shaking, knees shaking, everything. I almost to the point of throwing up. You too? You have the same? Yeah, it's a scary thing. And I'll tell you, I kept telling myself, the minute I do it one time, if I can get through it one time without dying, then I've done it. Now I can do it again and again, and I'll be okay. But I have to get through that first one. And so I've kind of taken that with me throughout, with all of my first experiences with anything that's scary.
Right. That's so good. And what I've learned, and it sounds like you have too, is every time you get to a place in your business and it's easy and you're comfortable is when that next challenge comes. And it's always bigger than where you are, so it's always scary, right? So I love that you jumped right out of the gate in school. You know, you hadn't got your degree yet. You hadn't really got a real job doing it yet. You had internships, but you hadn't got a real job doing it yet, right? But you had this audition, you get the gig, which is great. So now you are, you know, you have on your resume, you're able to say, I am a TV host. I've done this. So when did you, in the middle of all of this, so now you hadn't started your design firm yet, but I'm sure along the way that happened. So now you've got all these things happening all at once, and I'm sure all of them are growing. Your design firm starts to grow. Your on-air opportunities start to grow. So in all of that, what was a time in your business that you knew you had to make a big, bold move? and really
Yes.
expand who you were in the middle of it?
Such a good question. Such a good question. You know, I've always been told, my parents, they're pretty strict Indian parents. They grew up in India. My father came here he went to MIT on a full-boat scholarship. They had expectations, high expectations. And let's be honest, I wasn't exactly filling them because here I was bartending, I was working this job, working that job, you know, like I said, wasn't feeling fulfilled.
Right.
And I finally, I tried to supply my train of thought. Sorry, Nicole, what was the question?
What was that big, bold move like that you knew you had to take? Because now you had all these things. Right.
Sorry,
and let me tell you why I asked
you.
it, Tanya, for all the ladies that are wondering, like, why would you ask her that? Because people think you get to a certain level of success and you're done and you just coast, and that's not real.
Yeah.
You know, there comes the next level and the next level. So when was that? And you know, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so funny. My head's like swarming with all these stories and ideas. I was like, wait, what was the question? Yeah, so basically.
Now you guys see why I love Tanya, right? We could just laugh and chit-chat all day long.
I just call it out. Yeah, let me just say, these thoughts, they come and go. So the reason I brought up my father is because, you know, he had always said to me, Tanya, listen, this TV thing is great right now, but let's be honest, it's not going to last forever. He's like, you need your both feet planted firmly on the ground, so start coming up with your plan B. Now, mind you, my television career, that was almost 15 years ago, and it's still going, which I'm so grateful for, and I think in TV years, that's a very extended amount of time. Right. But in the interim, I started getting asked a lot of for design advice from people. People were inquiring about doing residential projects. They were inquiring about restaurants. My husband's a restaurateur. He was asking me to design restaurants for him and his partners. And so it was taking on that challenge, and I only bit off as much as I could chew. I would be a little bold and a little daring, but I felt like, okay, I can push myself to here. You know, I wasn't saying yes to designing a big condo development when I first started out. No, I needed to learn my steps and learn my way through it. But eventually I would bite off a little bit more and a little bit more. And the big change happened for me when one of my shows ended and I had a little bit of a gap of time. And if I'm going to be very honest with you, it was a bit of like a rough time because I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I love doing this TV stuff. And I actually at that point thought, well, this must be the end. Like, this must be where it ends, this TV career. And I really started to focus on, okay, well, I'm going to grab the momentum. People know who I am. They know my design work from seeing it on TV. Let me take this opportunity to start to build my business while the jobs are coming in. And then luckily, it was like one hand fed the other, and I got another TV show. You know, I moved on to do Restaurant Impossible, and now we're doing condo developments with my business. And so all of it just sort of fed each other, you know. I don't know. I think
it sounds to me like you were conscious of staying in the business and working on Tanya and working on the business, like not just accepting, okay, this is it. Okay, that goes away. Okay, I'm just going to do this. It's like, what else is available to me and what else can I do to get ready for that?
Right. And I'll tell you what, that marketing degree that I was talking about has helped my career incredibly in the sense that now with the TV background and the business background, I'm always trying to see how can I use my TV background to help market my business. And then I'm also looking at, okay, this will now therefore help me with endorsement deals. It helps me with, you know, all these sponsorships, going on Rachel Ray, going on the Ellen Show. I was on the Oprah Show. Like, all of that helped, you know, and I've pulled resources from everything to just kind of spread it out there. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And not only that, it makes sense, but so many people think that, you know, like even dare I say, so my undergraduate degree is in TV and film, right? So now I have a master's degree in social work. And people are like, well, how does that? But now I have full circle moments because, you know, really what I do with my clients is I'm producing them. So when I think about it in that context, I'm like, oh, my God, I have full circle moments. So I love that what you're able to show, what you're showing us, is that even you went to even though you had this marketing degree, right, master's degree in marketing, and went into a whole different field, that still served you. And so, you know, oftentimes I get clients that come in and they say things like, well, I had this coach and I didn't learn anything. I'm like, that's not true. You know, you had to go to kindergarten to get to elementary school. You had to go through elementary to get to junior high. You had to go to junior high. So everything matters. You might not realize that you learned 2 + 2 in kindergarten, but if you didn't know that, you wouldn't have been able to do the algebra you got in high school, you know?
Yeah,
so I love
it's so true. It's so true.
Right, and that you had a full circle moment.
The challenge, well, thank you. I think the challenge right now is that I never said no to anything. So basically I said yes to every single thing that came my way. And now that I'm getting a little older and, you know, I do want to enjoy my life and not constantly be working all the time, but I want my money to work for me. And so I now figured out, or trying to figure out, I haven't figured it out. Let me just be clear about that. I am trying to figure out ways to let my money continue to keep working for me while I am able to sort of find some balance in my life. And I'm trying very hard. It's hard for me, but I'm trying very hard to learn how to say no every once in a while and be okay with it.
Yes. And then how do you, and this is one of the things that I absolutely love working with my clients, and you and I can have an off-bar conversation over cocktails. But, you know, it's looking at how can you, you know, stop leaving money on the table. And some of that is Tanya not being present. So it's looking at all the ways that we can package your brilliance into ways, and so I love that you're having this problem because it's an easy problem and you talk to the person that can help you solve it. But the reason I'm bringing it up now is those of you that are listening understand that there are always additional ways that you can serve people, and it shouldn't include you being present, because what happens is, I was saying this actually to one of my cousins who owns a studio. And she teaches gymnastics. She was a gymnast, and now she teaches, not gymnastics, she teaches cheerleaders. And she does great, but she has to turn people away because she can only take, I think, like 10 or 15 at a time. So I said, first of all, you can teach someone else. Second of all, you know, there are all kind of different ways you can teach that. Third of all, when you get to be 65, girl, you're not going to be tumbling and turning flips and showing people how to flip. There's no way. So we've got to start looking at now, how do we implement it now so that people are buying into it now that you're in your 30s, because, you know, we got 30 years to do it. But that's how we start looking at multiple streams of income. How can we do some of these things where you're not present? Because, again, I kept saying, girl, 65, that's great. At 30, even now, and she's just had a baby, it gets to be hard.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Right. One of the greatest things that's worked out for me, you know, you had mentioned that I do that Christmas show, the ABC Great Christmas Lights Break show every year. And when I do that show, I have to leave my business. This past season, I was gone for 10 to 11 weeks. Imagine leaving your business. It's my business, and I had to leave it for almost 11 weeks. The thing that I've learned, though, is that even though it's Taniya Nayak Design, I have hired an incredible team of designers. The goal here is to be a CEO of my own company. I have to trust, I have to delegate, and I have to respect what they're doing. And at the end of the day, yes, the final say will be mine. I can still work remotely and review their drawings, review the plans. I give them direction. I guide them along. But in order for me to grow, I have to give up a little bit of that control and let them do things so that the work is continuing to be done without me having to micromanage everyone. And so that gave me the opportunity to have the best of both worlds. I'm able to travel. Because that show we were filming at night because it's Christmas lights, so we needed it to be dark out. So I'm filming at night, but all during the day I was working from my hotel room, remotely from my computer, checking in, doing conference calls. There's great things like these video conferencing apps like Appearin and what have you. And so we were just constantly in communication, and it was a beautiful thing.
I love it. So, Tanya, if you had to give ladies three strategies or three things that they have to do in order to move into their more, and which is really kind of our theme for the Slay Summit is, you know, it's not being complacent or settling for good enough and settling for average, you know, which is really what you did when you made the transition into doing design, which is really what you did when you jumped into that opportunity to audition and you had never done that before, right?
Exactly.
Right. If you had to give ladies three things they must do, what would they be?
Well, I think one of them would be have a game plan, but don't have a plan. You know? So if you have a general game plan, have some direction and some focus, but don't lay it out so hard that if you don't meet those plans that you feel like you failed yourself. Give yourself a little breathing room to allow it to have flexibility and movement in that plan. Just have a focus, you know. So that would
and I love you
one.
said that because my plans never look like what I thought they were going to look like. I end up getting to where I really wanted, but I never get to the way I thought I was going to get there. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a hard lesson for me too. I mean, I became, especially in production, everything is a super, super strict, tight, by-the-minute plan. And so I started to become like that with my friends and my family. We would go on a little vacation. I would have an agenda for everybody. And it was like, okay, this is the truth. I'd be like, girls, you guys, we had a girls trip, and I put this agenda together, and I was like, okay, you all need to get in the shower by this time so that we can call Uber at this time so we can make it to the restaurant by this time. And my friends, they have babies at home, and they're like, girl, the last thing I want right now is an agenda. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I said you're right. And it was such an eye-opener for me that everything doesn't have to be so thought out all the time. Sometimes the best things in life happen when you're not expecting it. You're just kind of living in the moment. Yeah. So that was one, right? I think another big one for me is networking. So you and I met because I was asked to moderate this panel of fabulous life coaches, and you were on that panel. And I had that opportunity to get to know all of you. And I remember when they had presented it to me, they said, we can just send you a bio on everyone. And I said, no way. I wanted to call. I chatted with everyone. Some of you I met in person beforehand. And it was a great way for us to network. I mean, look at you and I now. I adore you. I feel like I can pick up the phone anytime and call you and vice versa for anything.
Right.
So networking is really big, and it doesn't matter to what extent. Networking can happen in a gym and in a class. Networking can happen anywhere. You just put yourself out there. And I noticed that there's a fine line where people feel like they're embarrassed to talk about what they do. They're very humble or whatever. And humble, I'm all about being humble. I think that is great. But don't ever be afraid to just put it out there, what you do. When somebody says, what's going on in your life? What are you working on? They're asking because they want to know. Don't be afraid to say it. There's certainly a braggadocious way of saying things, which is a complete turnoff. But there's a conversational way of saying what you're doing and what you're up to. Because I can't tell you how many times those little few-minute conversations have led to, get out of here. I know so-and-so, and he's building a condo development in your area where you live. Let me put you in touch with them. Right now, that just happened. Now, I have 2 developments right here near where I live, and I have 5 developments that we're doing in South Boston. So these are all came. The ones from South Boston, my trainer at the gym, it trained this guy who's doing all the developments. And he said, I got to connect you guys. And he connected us, and boom, just like that, now we've got these developments that we're doing. So, I mean, it's all about just putting yourself out there, and not being afraid. This is another thing this is probably the best advice anyone's ever given me, so I kind of would like to pass this on to others, too. And it seems very complicated, but in hindsight, I think if you think about it, I think a lot of us have something close to this. So my friend, who is a very successful business person, had also gone through bankruptcy once in life and pulled themselves out and came out on top again for a second time. So they were on top. Fortunately, things didn't go so well. It's some rough times in life. And then now it's pulled themselves up, and they're at the top of their game. And so what he had suggested to me was that it's important for everybody to try to have 5 different sources of income. 5 sounds like a lot, right? But it could be an investment. It could be an investment property. For me, I do television. I have my business. I have sponsorships, like endorsement deals kinds of things, speaking engagements. I think obviously that world is a little different than the everyday norm. You know what I mean? But but there's many different ways that I think if you think about it, like I said, if there's an investment property that you could take on or stocks or whatever it is, just to have multiple sources so that when one doesn't go so great, it's ever-changing times. When something's not doing so well, then you have another that's there to back you up. My husband and I, we have some restaurants in Boston, and I've personally invested in some of those restaurants. So, hey, you know what? Every now and then I get a residual check, and that's great. Let's just say everything else fell apart. I'm still going to get my my little residual check that's going to help push me through. And it takes that pressure and anxiety away from my day-to-day. Like television, as my dad always said, it's a tough business. And one day it's there and one day it's gone. And so if I didn't have these other sources, then I would be living on the edge of fear. If my TV show went away, then where am I going to make money? So it's important to kind of keep that cycle going.
This is even number 3 is worth, more than the price of the admission is cost of time and energy. So let me just give you a review, because Tanya gave us so many nuggets, and yes, I'm over here taking notes, and yes, my handwriting is horrible, so don't laugh, because it takes me a second to realize what I said. So the first thing she talked about. Oh, you look, so am I. But I was all into it, and I already write sloppy as it is. But so the first thing she talked about was the fact that she shifted everything. That she had this degree, she was playing it safe, and she realized if she wanted to do the thing that she was really rumbling in her belly, she would have to come out of that safety, right? And here's what she said: I'm too young to work a job that doesn't feel good. And what she meant is young in spirit, right? It doesn't mean young in age, because at any point in your life, if you feel like you are not happy, why are you there, right? And then even after she jumped out and went and started going to school at the architectural school, right, getting her master's degree, she had another opportunity, right? And what she did was jump into that. And in that moment, here's what she said: sometimes it's the anxiousness of being successful that holds us back. And so when you're anxious, when you're afraid, when everything feels like, oh, my God, I'm scared, it's pushing yourself into that and knowing you're going to have to be uncomfortable to move to your next level. And here's the 3 steps that Tanya gave us. Have a game plan, but not a plan, right? The best things in life happen when you don't expect it. Number 2, networking is big. You've got to put yourself out there. And then number 3, you've got to have different sources of income. So with that, Tanya, you gave us so much yumminess, right?
Oh, good.
And so to end, tell us let me ask you this. What, if you had to give us one book that you think you absolutely love when you read it, either that or your favorite quote? I'll let you choose.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, you know what? There is a quote that I love, and it's funny because you mentioned, I just heard you say the words good and something not being good enough for you. And this quote is actually, good enough is never good enough for me. And there's so many times in a day where, you're running around, you're rushed, you're busy, and you look at something and you say, it's good enough. Well, it should never be good enough. Like those words should never be part of your vocabulary, good enough. So good enough is never good enough for me. It's a really, really big one for me. I don't know who said it. I wish I could tell you where that quote came from, but I just heard it, and I love it. But you know what?
You live your life by that, Tanya. Everything you talked about was, every time you felt like it was good enough, you up-leveled. And so thank you for being willing to share insight. Thank you for not only you being willing to not say yes to good enough, but that you'd be willing to come on and share with all the ladies and really step on their toes a little bit to tell them that it's time for them to stop living in good enough.
Yeah. No, I love this. I'm so glad you had me on. I think you're doing something great for women.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Fierce Files. Now, I want you to walk away from these episodes with value, so grab your pen and answer either one or all 3 of these questions. Number 1, what was your greatest takeaway? Number 2, what will you do differently as a result of what you heard? So you may have heard something you've already heard before, or you may have learned something new. Either way, don't take the insight that was shared with you for granted. So commit to doing one thing different because of what you heard. Number 3, what was confirmation for you? What did you hear that confirmed you're on the right path? See, I want you to take a moment and celebrate you. Too often in our journey, we focus on what we're not doing and we forget to celebrate what we are doing. So what was something that showed you that you're headed in the right direction? Now, I want you to share your answers. Share your answer to either number 1, what was your greatest takeaway? Number 2, what would you do different? Or number 3, what was confirmation for you? And share it in our Facebook community. So go to findyourfiercemovement.com and use the hashtag FierceFiles. Now, each experience we encourage, support, and celebrate as a community. It allows us to expand in possibility and wisdom, in encouragement and love. Now, we've invited you into our community to deepen our journey with being the answer someone needs and in being committed to your next level. So until the next time, be extraordinary, be unapologetic, be bodaciously you, go and be fierce.